From Amateur Radio Newsline Report number 2086, these are the Ham Nation headlines for Wednesday, October 25th, 2017. Our top story this week focuses on the California wildfires.
The wildfires in California have burned over 220,000 acres, destroyed close to 6,000 structures, and have killed over 40 people so far. Once again, amateur radio operators have been called in to help with the communications support. In the Sonoma area, the Sonoma Auxiliary Communications Service, or ACS, was pressed into duty supporting shelters in the Petaluma area. I spoke with Steve Fisher, K6ETA, about their role.
We've coordinated the delivery of over 500 cots, breakfasts from the Redwood Empire Food Bank, and many donation and volunteer offers that the public have been generously bringing forward.
Part of ACS's function is to coordinate with community support.
Community at large was very helpful. We were the link between the Salvation Army and the Petaluma logistics team.
Even when primary communications are still online, there is a place for amateur radio.
Usually we're called in when all else fails, so we're sort of the effort of last resort. But in this case, we had all of our internet and cell phones working. However, we were still needed to fill in many gaps that existed due to the situational awareness challenges of having multiple fires.
The cleanup and recovery efforts will be ongoing, and, as always, amateur radio operators will be there. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Paul Brown, WD9GCO.
The damage done by Hurricane Maria's powerful punch continues to ripple through the Caribbean, where the long process of repair and restoration enters its second month.
Amateur radio organizations, manufacturers, and donors are rallying around Dominica, where the ham radio capability was virtually wiped out by the storm. The effort is being led by the Aspen Foundation, the Foundation for Amateur International Radio Services, Yaesu USA's amateur division, and a group of private pilots who are also hams, including Brian McEsney, K1LI, Dave Bridgham, N1AHF, and Brian Lloyd, WB6RQN. More than $30,000 worth of ham radio equipment has been deployed to Dominica, where hams are now working with the Dominican Amateur Radio Club and the National Telecommunications Regulatory Commission in Dominica to set up the stations and train new operators so Dominica is better prepared in future emergencies. Meanwhile, in another part of the Caribbean, post-Maria conditions have prompted the cancellation of the 2018 ARRL Puerto Rican State Convention, which was to be held on January 26 through 28 in Hatillo. Organizers said the Coliseum that was to be the convention's venue was too badly damaged to be ready in time. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Bobby Best, WX4ALA.
Our final story was just made for Halloween. It involves amateur radio operators deep in the woods and a monster known as Bigfoot.
Now here's a Halloween question for hams. When you're operating out in the wild, sitting around a campfire and telling ghost stories while pursuing good signal reports, what do you need more than favorable band conditions? Well, how about bravery? It's the 50th anniversary of a documentary film that is said to have captured footage of the Bigfoot monster at Bluff Creek, Oregon. The controversial 1967 account by Bob Gimlin and Roger Patterson is the inspiration behind the Bigfoot Radio Net Expeditionary Team's sojourn this month into the woods of southeastern Oklahoma. The hams will be calling QRZ on the HF bands, wondering about the likelihood of good copy by Sasquatch himself. Maybe the smell of melting s'mores will draw him out into the open, or maybe the smell of good campfire coffee. Look for details about the team's adventures and keep current on their operating frequency on their Facebook page. Then listen for them on the air. The Bigfoot Radio Net's field operation begins October 23rd and runs through the 28th, at least unless Bigfoot has other plans for them. It is, after all, almost Halloween. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Mike Askins, KE5CXP in Shawnee, Oklahoma.
For the rest of this week's Amateur Radio News, please listen to the full Amateur Radio Newsline report online on a repeater near you or on shortwave radio station WTWW at 9930 and 5085 kilohertz. That's all from the Amateur Radio Newsline, your independent source for amateur radio news for 4 decades and counting at www.arnewsline.org. With Paul Brown, WD9GCO, Bobby Best, WX4ALA, Mike Askins, KE5CXP, Karen Eve Murray, KD2GUT at the news desk in New York, and our news team across the globe. I'm Don Wilbanks, AE5DW, from very near the home of the Honey Island swamp monster. 7-3. We'll see you next time here on Ham Nation.